Hey comic lovers, EMoney and the old man back with you again for our review of comics that were released on January 20th. So before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, give us a thumbs up, and if you like, leave us a comment. Alright, so we had 8 issues this week. Now, just to give you a refresher on how we score things around here, we are going to score each story if a comic has multiple stories. We're going to review them based on story and on artwork. And then we will give a score overall for each story and then a primary solid score for the entire issue.
And we use a 1 through 5 Shields rating. How many 5s have we given so far?
0.
No, haven't been any 5s.
Yeah.
Haven't been any 1s either. You might have given one of the stories a 1, but no comic has gotten a 1 rating. So haven't really looked at anything that's atrocious.
Not yet.
I like to think I'm a little bit better than that at picking comic books, but who knows? Speaking of picking comic books, any of you publishers out there that would like to have the prestige of being reviewed by EMoney and the old man, all you have to do is send the comics. You send them, we'll review them. That's a fact. Well, unless you send a box of 300 or something, and then it might take a while. But at any rate, you ready to kick your show off?
All right, let's get going. So we're continuing our reviews of the Future State issues, and starting things off, we have the Next Batman, issue number 2.
And that one we did get the cardstock variant, which has a cover price of a whopping $8.99.
All right, so we have 3 stories in this issue. The first one, we follow Batman, and we actually learn who this new Batman is in this issue. And of course, we've discussed it already on this video, or our last week's video. Gotham is
a mess.
Yeah, it's being ruled by this fascist rule of the magistrate, and masks are outlawed. Vigilanteism is outlawed, and of course, Batman is public enemy number 1.
Yeah, he's kill on sight.
Right, and so we find out who the new Batman is, and he's still trying to do what he does, help the little guy. And the authorities are not making it easy for him. And so, storyline I was pretty interested in, so I ended up giving it a 4. I think it goes back to the original Batman's roots and doing what he does. And artwork, pretty solid. Didn't offend me, so I gave it a 3.
I, on the other hand, thought the story was okay. The highlight, of course, the reveal on who's Batman, which, sure, that's interesting, but the rest of the story seemed a little bit slow to me. The artwork was adequate, so I gave both story and art a 3, which averaged out to give this particular story a 3.
All right. So on to the next story. There is a new prison around, the magistrate detention facility. So it's their new facility in Gotham, and we see mostly people who have been characterized as villains, but also a few people we called heroes back in the day. And I was finding myself interested in this story. We find one of our heroes brought into this place. We don't know what she's done, if she's done anything. And she meets an old friend, and she's not happy with her. So we find out what's going on there. So this one kept my attention. So I was a little apprehensive at the beginning, but I got into it. So I ended up giving the story a 4. Artwork, I mean, it was good. Not quite as solid as the first one, but not enough that I deducted a point. So it got a 3.
I, on the other hand, thought the story was a little bit dry. I didn't really care about the characters. There's a last panel that bumped it up a little bit, but I still only gave the story a 2. Art was fine. I gave it a 3. This rounded this one out also to a 3 for the story.
Okay, so next up we have Gotham City Sirens in the final story, Ladies' Night Out. And Catwoman and Pamela Isley, Poison Ivy, have formed a strange partnership. I mean, usually you see Ivy and Harley Quinn or Catwoman either by herself or with Batman. Mm-hmm. So this was a bit of an odd couple sort of thing. And through their adventures, they make a new friend, a bit of an odd friend. The story I thought was a little bland. There was one point where they come to this hideout. It's sort of a, it's under the magistrate rule Gotham, so you find this hidden refuge. It's neutral territory for heroes and villains, and it's kind of like a modern day speakeasy. So that one kind of got my attention. I was like, oh, okay, so what are we gonna see here? They don't do anything with it, so I was pretty disappointed by that. So storyline wise, I found it lacking, and I gave it a 2. Artwork was kind of meh, so I ended up giving that a 2 as well. So there's my scores for those 3 stories. So there you go.
Well, on the third story, I pretty much agreed with you. I thought the story was boring. The only interesting part to me was I guess it was a bar or a nightclub where it reminded me of Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files. There's a bar in those novels where everybody's got to behave, or the hotel in the John Wick stories.
Okay.
It was like that, and that was interesting, but that was the end of the interest to me. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
So gave the story a 2. I thought the art was better than you did. I thought it was okay. So I gave it a 3. This rounded out for the story an average of a 2, which didn't really hurt the outcome for the comic as a whole, because overall it rated a 3.
3. All right, so that concludes that one. So next up we have another Future State, Catwoman, issue number 1 here.
This one has a $3.99 cover price, and there's only one story in this one.
So we see Catwoman is kind of mostly on her own here, and she's kind of taken to heroics without any help from Batman or anybody else here.
Well, I mean, let's face it. In recent years, at worst, Catwoman would be an anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
And she hasn't been a villain for a while.
So the whole story is she is infiltrating a train, high-speed train going through Gotham, and I thought that was interesting. I thought it had shades of Snowpiercer to it, and you're fighting from car to car. So I thought that was fun, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. So I ended up giving the story a 4. Artwork, pretty solid. I ended up giving it a 3.
Well, I don't usually care that much about Catwoman stories, but this one was very well written, very interesting. I didn't see the storyline so much as Snowpiercer, but as the train robbery episode from Firefly.
Okay.
Thought it was a lot like that. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen Firefly, they canceled it. But anyway, the artwork I did not like. I had issues with that. I didn't care for it a whole lot, so I only gave the art a 2. Overall, that particular comic as a whole, got a 3.5.
All right. So next up in Future State, we have Immortal Wonder Woman.
Number 1, $5.99 cover price. Now this is a different Wonder Woman than we read previously for Future State.
Yeah, I mean...
this is Diana.
Diana Prince is back. So I thought she was gone or something. So in this story, there are elements of Greek mythology and Themyscira, and also the new gods. So a lot of different elements to this one, and the Earth is in kind of rough shape here. So I thought the story was decent enough, probably on the low end of decent, I guess, but the last few panels kind of saved it, so I ended up giving it a 3. Artwork, I don't know, I thought the dimensions were a bit off, so artwork I didn't care for as much, and I gave it a 2.
Now for me, the first story in there, I mean, I know that you've got to have those downer stories so that in the end the hero can save the day and then you get the uplifting part of the story. But this one it reminded me of the Null storyline going on in the Marvel stories right now. And it was like all bad. But I didn't care for the story that much. I did give it a 3. And the artwork was average, so I gave that a 3. So this story averaged out to a 3. Now the next story.
All right, so next story we have a different Wonder Woman. Not sure how that works, but
It's the Wonder Woman that we reviewed, the Future State comic, in the last couple episodes. I forget for last week or the week before, but her name is Nubia.
Nubia. Okay, so this story was kind of meh. They throw a little bit of action at you at the beginning, and then afterwards it's just talk. So they didn't really grab my attention, so I ended up giving it a 2 for story. Artwork was perfectly fine, so I ended up giving that a 3.
But we tied on both. I gave it a 2 also. I was disappointed because the story that we had Nubia in last time I thought was pretty good. It was very interesting. It didn't seem to, it was more of a fantasy setting. Well, this is just back to the normal superhero story. And I don't know, I just didn't care. So 2 for story, 3 for art. That gave this particular story a 2.5, and it gave the comic overall 2.5 shields.
Okay. All right, so next up, we have Future State Nightwing, issue number 1 there.
Now this one, we did get the card stock variant, and it's a $4.99 cover price.
All right, so we're back in Gotham under the magistrate's rule. Vigilantism is outlawed, and their public enemy number 1, Nightwing, ranks really high on their list.
Yeah, he may not be number 1, but he's in the top 5.
But Nightwing still wants to do what he does, and so far he has proven to be too smart for the magistrate, and Batman has taught him well. So we find him in his hideout after a long day of avoiding the magistrate and other stuff. He meets a new friend who, these two are long overdue for a meeting. And the two of them have a little chat. And then in the last panel, you're like, oh, okay. Now they have my attention for next week. So this is probably one of the better Nightwing stories. So I gave this one a, where am I? Okay, a 4 overall. Artwork, pretty solid. If you can see on the cover here, pretty great artwork. Not quite Jim Lee level, but I would put it in the same league. So I gave the artwork a 4.
Now for me, I thought it was, keep in mind, we've not read the Nightwing from the 52 series. We have it, we just haven't got to it yet. So I've not read a ton of Nightwing stories. I haven't sought them out because to me he's just, Batman Jr. He's not even in Gotham in most of the stories. He's in Bloodhaven, which I don't care about Bloodhaven. But I thought this was an excellent story. I enjoyed the fact that Nightwing he's worn out. I mean, he's tired. Great story. Like you said, the last panel was excellent. It's not a reveal, but it definitely makes you want to see what happens. Artwork, I thought it was a little bit better than average, but not enough that I could give it the 4 that you did. So I gave the story a 4, the art a 3, but my 3 didn't hurt the overall average. It still ended up, that particular comic gets a 4.
All right, so that does it for the first half. So on to the next few issues, and we're continuing with Future State. Next one is
Shazam!
Shazam. All right, so there it is right there, issue number 1 for Future State. So, in this story, a lot has happened. Shazam is a different guy than we usually know him as, and he's leading an oddball team. And other than the Marvel family, I never really saw Shazam or Captain Marvel as the leader type, especially not on the Justice League's level. But he's leading this team, and you see a couple revelations as the story goes on. You're like, oh, that's interesting. So I usually don't go for Captain Marvel or Shazam solo stories, but this one had me interested. So I ended up giving Shazam a 3 for the story. Artwork, pretty good. It had a lot of attention to detail here, so I ended up giving it a 4.
All right. I, on the other hand, have enjoyed quite a few of the Captain Marvel stories. Stupid calling him Shazam. It's not his name. But anyway, Captain Marvel's always been a solid read for me. I've always enjoyed the stories. I've liked it when Superman and Captain Marvel meet up. This particular story I thought was pretty well done. Wasn't enough for me to give it a 4. So I gave story 3, art a 3, and overall this comic ended up getting a 3.
Okay. All right, so on to the next one. We have Future State Superman Worlds of War.
That's number 1.
Number 1.
$7.99 cover price.
And this one has a whopping 4 stories in it. All right, so the first one, of course, follows Superman. And this begins with people who are meeting in, I think, Smallville. And they are sharing stories of what happened when Superman saved them, from years ago or whenever it happened. And I don't know, that part I found, got kind of boring after a while. The story picks up in the second half. Don't want to spoil anything for you, but it's definitely a different take. So the first story I ended up giving a 3 overall to. Artwork, solid, so that also got a 3 from me.
I, on the other hand, thought the story was good, gave it a 3. I enjoyed the beginning half of that storyline. I enjoyed hearing how these people felt about Supes. I mean, everybody had a different take. Everybody saw a different guy. But I enjoyed it. The artwork, I thought it was a notch above average. I gave it a 4. So that one averaged a strong 3.
All right. So
next story.
Next story is another Mr. Miracle story, and if you watched our last video, you remember same artwork and writing team as last time, I presume. And I'm sorry, I just don't care. I mean, I read it, I got through it, but I have no desire to read the next one. But I probably will, because it'll be tucked away in another issue that we buy for some other character. So writing, I gave a 2. Artwork was also a 2. I think the 2's generous here.
Well, we both agreed. I gave it a 2 and a 2 also, which makes me sad, because I always loved, as I said previous episode, I always loved Mr. Miracle. I mean, all the new Genesis stuff that Jack Kirby worked on, come on. Where's it at? I would love to see a Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle story again, but he's dead, so we can't.
Well, if the writing team wants to stop on this story, I'd be perfectly okay with that. All right, so next story.
It doesn't get a whole lot better.
We have a story of, what's his name again?
Yeah.
Midnighter.
I mean, if anybody out there knows who Midnighter is, clue me in.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do any research on it, but I don't recall ever seeing him before.
I mean, he kind of looks like Batman, but without the pointy ears, and has a, duster jacket instead of a cape. So, I don't know. I mean, I read the story. Didn't really care for it. I ended up giving it a 2. The artwork, it's like it started out decent enough, and then, like, as new characters entered into the story, it just got worse and like, yeah, that's gross. So I ended up giving the artwork a 2 as well.
Well, we almost totally agreed. I agree on the story. It's a character I don't know anything about. Batman could have done it better, and they're almost the same guy. So, Midnighter, storyline 2. Now, I almost gave the artwork a 2, but I ended up giving it a 3. But still, this particular story only eked out a 2.
All right, so fourth and final story, we have Black Racer. Dad seems to know what that is. I don't know what the hell that is.
Well, yeah, there was a Black Racer, and to be honest, I never really cared for the character. He always introduced something. He was a way to get from A to B in a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely was he a main character or an interesting character. He may have been another Jack Kirby creation. Seems like he had something to do with New Genesis, but I never really cared for the guy.
Okay, so it's a new Black Racer according to your description, and again, I just don't find myself caring that much. So I ended up giving the story a 2 and artwork decent enough, so I gave that one a 3.
Well, we tied on that, 2 and a 3 here also. Some of these backup stories, it's like,
why?
is that all they got?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't come up with something better for these.
So the backstories just brought this whole issue down.
Yeah.
So overall, we gave a 2.5 for the issue overall.
Yeah.
It would have been so much better if it had just stuck with the Superman story.
Yeah. Make that story a couple pages longer, and
yep,
it would have been fine.
All right, so
That's
we're
it for
done with DC and Future State. So on to Marvel, and we have here Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, issue number 1. So this one, I have not read a whole lot of Iron Fist solo stories. The ones I have read were, hit and miss. But this one had a lot of cool stuff to it. It had, elements of, New York crime fighting. It had parts of the, mystical, magical stuff of Iron Fist to it.
A lot of that, in fact.
Mm-hmm. And it had some cool guest stars. So, both bad guys and good guys. I was surprised. So, interesting stuff here. And, I'm eager to read the next issue. So, I ended up giving a 4 for the story. Artwork, solid. And I ended up giving that one a 3.
All right, so I don't know if you ever watched a lot of episodes of Cheers.
No.
Okay, well, let me tell you, the main character, Mayday Malone, was what the story was originally intended to be about. I'm sorry. The success of that TV show was the supporting characters. One of the strongest casts of supporting characters of any sitcom. This comic book reminded me of a way of that. Sure, Iron Fist is the main character, and he was pretty good, but there's 4 supporting characters, which to me were way more interesting. And I really liked the story. I mean, that was a solid 4. I thought about giving it a 5, but I couldn't quite do it. Artwork was adequate. It was fine, so I gave it a 3. This one got 3.5 shields overall.
All right. So our 8th and final issue for this week was continuing with Marvel. You have King in Black, issue number 3. This is the all-inclusive Marvel series going on right now, and without not spoiling anything because it's on the cover, Thor finally arrives to do battle with the god of the symbiotes. And, that makes for a good old-fashioned slobber knocker.
He said slobber knocker.
Yeah. One thing I found interesting about this issue is there's a character, not going to spoil it, there's a character who, has his popularity, but whenever they do one of these, all-inclusive Marvel stories, like, say, like Civil War or World War Hulk, for example, you don't see a lot of this character. You don't know what he's up to. This one, he's part of it. He's in on it. He's in the thick of it. So it's cool to see that character show up in a story like this. So a lot of cool stuff in this one. I saw there was like one really satisfying panel in one of these, and then you go to, there it is right there. I like that. Then you go to the final panel to see, what's coming up next, and you're like, yes, let's get some. So a lot of cool stuff in this issue, and I'm enjoying the story overall. So I gave story a 4. And the artwork was a solid 3. So good issue for me.
Well, I've not been liking the King in Black storyline that much. As you pointed out to me earlier today, I believe, I've never been a fan of the symbiotes.
Mm-hmm.
Venom, Carnage, they're okay. I know they're popular, but not so much to me. Now, I had heard that this comic was going to be a key issue, that there was going to be some, I guess I heard it wrong. I thought people were saying it had first appearances in it. If it does, I can't find it. It has some first appearances in the storyline, like Thor. That's his first time showing up in this story. Thank goodness. And there's a couple other ones. The guy you're talking about who doesn't usually show up does. That was very interesting, cool.
Yep.
And the last panel, it's good. But just overall, not for me. So I gave it a 3. It wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just nothing great for me. Our work was solid. It was a 3. And this particular comic ended up averaging out for 3 shields.
All right, so that's our last issue. So now it's time for our top 3, in case you haven't been keeping score. So number 3 was Catwoman, who scored a 3.5. Now, if you did the numbers and were real sticklers about it, it averaged a 3.25.
Yeah,
but because we
rounded
rounding up, it ends up with a 3.5, which is why it's number 3. Because our number 2 also got a 3.5, but it was a solid 3.5.
No rounding, 3.5.
Yeah. Was Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon. Make sure I got the subtitle right. And then finally, our number 1 issue was a Future State. I think this is the first time Future State scored number 1 for us, right?
Might be right.
All right, so was Nightwing. Bit of a surprise winner this week.
Big surprise when I set the pile of comic books down that we were going to read.
Mm-hmm.
I would never, ever have predicted Nightwing would have been in the top 3, much less number 1.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
So there you have it, top 3. If you haven't bought your comics for this week, definitely
Why not?
recommend these 3 for you.
Why haven't you bought? I mean, it's by the time this comes out, it'll be
About almost Friday.
Friday. What are you doing? Come on. I mean, we have a standing appointment at Comic Book World. They know we're going to be there. I walk in the door, they hand us their comics. I mean, come on.
All right, so there you have it for this week. So before we sign off here, we want to remind you of all the cool stuff we have going on this channel. A lot of cool content. We have our comic reviews every week for our the Wednesday new releases. Also, we have our show, Back Issues with EMoney and the Old Man. Last week, or this week actually, we did our 3rd part in our series of the history of comic books with the Atomic Age.
If you don't know what the Atomic Age is, watch the video.
Mm-hmm. And next week, we're going to be continuing.
Next week, we're going to be doing what?
Continuing our series.
And what era?
In the Silver Age.
My age, yes.
So he's excited about that.
It's going to be a slobber knocker.
Okay. We're throwing that word around loosely now. And also, we have our Boxed Heroes unboxing. We're about to put out a new video on that. Our box just arrived today, so we're going to be posting that soon. Also, don't forget to check out our reaction videos. Right now, we're watching WandaVision. That comes out Friday, so we're going to be watching that. So watch WandaVision on Disney Plus, and then come back to our channel and watch our reaction video. And we get to share that with you guys, our love of Marvel and WandaVision.
If you're not watching WandaVision, and I assume you're a comic book fan because you're watching this video. Why aren't you watching Wanda? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good show. It's one of those shows where you don't know what's going on, but you can't wait to learn.
It's like Lost, but cooler.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
All right, guys. So check out all the cool content. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Excelsior.
True believers, read more comic books.
As usual.